Today's episode's brought to you by the High Noon Hot Seat.
Drop the beat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. What's going on with you, bud?
All sorts of stuff. We've already had a big day today. We just got done interviewing, I'll say it here now, the best Doomfist in the world in Leaf. You can check that out on... Actually, by the time you hear this, it won't be out, but it will be out in a couple days. And that'll just lead us right into some housekeeping stuff that we're just gonna talk about right now. With the awesome influx of sweet Overwatch League and Overwatch competitive Overwatch interviews, we've decided to break up the episodes. So instead of having these 2-hour-long super episodes that I'm sure everyone loves sitting through and listening to in one chunk and not having a choice to listen to them later, but instead we're going to do it in separate episodes. And I, of course, being the lyrical genius that I am, came up with a really stupid name for the side series called the High Noon Hot Seat. So we're calling the interviews the High Noon Hot Seat. They're just going to be separate episodes, separate videos on YouTube, so it's easy. If you don't want to listen to us talk about the normal stuff during the show, you can just listen to the good parts instead of skipping an hour in. We're just doing that for you. So
yes, and also if you want to catch them live, unfortunately, due to scheduling reasons and just available, I mean, we had to talk to Leaf. It was 1 a.m. in the morning where he is, so you can imagine we don't have a ton of flexibility as to when we can record them. But we do always record them live on Twitch, so you can catch them early before they get released. But you have no choice. You have to get into our Discord server or follow us on Twitter, where we will tell you by tweet or by announcement that is going to be happening. There's unfortunately no way to keep them on any sort of regularly scheduled time.
Right. So the interviews will be occurring at random times depending on scheduling, but they'll be released on Thursday night / Friday morning Eastern time, right after basically Wednesdays for the normal show, Fridays for the High Noon Hot Seat. We decided to release more than one thing a week because we're awesome. And we're not just, I hate sitting on the content, especially when we're talking about like Contenders results. It's like, well, those 2-week-old Contenders results from a patch that's no longer live, really not that interesting. So
we just felt like we weren't giving you everything in the episodes that we wanted to give you, that we thought you needed to know to keep up to date on the Overwatch competitive scene and the pro scene. And also, we love doing these interviews, and we didn't want to stop doing those either. So this felt like just kind of the perfect middle ground. As always, though, if you do have any feedback about it whatsoever, we're also podcast listeners, so we know that there's fatigue involved here. And when you start to hit the 90-minute mark, like everybody's falling asleep, no matter how exciting the topic is. So we thought this was best, but if you guys, overwhelmingly disagree, let us know. It's no skin off our back to do it either way. So,
yeah, just let us know. We're going to try to keep the one regular episode, one interview a week clip, with maybe some other stuff happening depending on some of our other side stuff, but we're going to keep churning it out. We already have, I believe, one confirmed and then one like soft confirmed for another interview. So we've got the next 2 weeks already locked up. Technically, the first episode was the Logix interview, which is up right now. Just type in High Noon Hot Seat on YouTube or Logix interview, whatever, you'll find it. It's right on the High Noon Podcast YouTube. It's also an episode, etc., etc. So you should be able to find that. Next one will be Leaf, which should be coming out in just a couple of days. But I think that's everything from that. So to recap, we're releasing 2 episodes a week, one of which is just an interview episode. You can find out all the stuff in the normal places: iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, etc. highnoonpodcast.com, of course, is always the best place, and Discord is the quickest. This is the best and quickest and instantaneous place. So go to highnoonpodcast.com, join the Discord there. We've got a nice little influx of folks into the Discord. We've been getting the pro players as well to come in and chat a little bit as well, so that's been fun too. Really, the Discord is the place to be. We listen to all the feedback and all that stuff. Pretty much 100% because we're lazy and uncreative. But yeah, anything else on that front, Death?
No, I think that's just about it for the housekeeping stuff. So we can move into the main show.
Let us move in and talk a little bit about what we did last week. I'll start this one off. I had some family stuff go on. I wasn't in the hospital, but I was visiting in the hospital over the weekend. Everything's all right, so no need to worry there. My girlfriend had some complications, but she is all right. And in the downtime, I actually got to sit down and watch some Contenders, and we will be talking about doing some deep dives on some of the matches in just a little bit. As you can see, for proof, I've got notes. I wrote down notes for matches. I feel so accomplished. Actually having done something. It felt really good.
Let's not underestimate the fact that you logged in. I can't verify that you played games, but I saw the Blevins has entered Overwatch in the bottom right corner of my screen at some point.
I played a couple of games.
So
just of my own volition.
You are almost actually a fan of Overwatch now. I'm so proud of you. As for myself, it was family reunion weekend. Ooh. So, that was nightmare. And also, I had my first match for the tournament that the new team is doing. It's the Overwatch University League. I put links in the Discord. If you're curious about where the developmental scene is going, there's no stream available for the open division stuff. So if you want to watch that, make sure you tune into Thorn Rain's content, as he does just about as much work as you could ever ask anybody to do, compiling information about the open division and reporting on it. He's going to be doing more writing on our website coming up, and I'm not 100% sure. I haven't talked to him, but hopefully the open division quick play is still going to be a thing, so keep an eye out for that as well. I believe he's on iTunes now and everything, and instead of just SoundCloud. So make sure you look out for him as well. And again, just tweet at us or email us, do whatever you need to do if you're looking for any links about that stuff. But his content is definitely available on highnoonpodcast.com, at least that which he writes about. So otherwise, in that tournament, went pretty poorly. We got 4-0'd. It was a team that was about 500 SR, I think it was, above us. I went and looked after the fact at what their ratings were, and they were in the 4,200 range. And we've got some people that are up in the the GM bracket, but then we have myself down like at the very entry level of Masters because I refused to solo queue, and then we've just got basically a team average of like around 3,700 is what we've been advertising, 3,700 plus when we're scrimming. So between 300 to 500 SR above us, and really it was a little frustrating, but it wasn't too bad. In all reality, we've got footage of everything. We're going to be going over the VODs of that tonight. And, kind of the Discord conversation today led me to a new idea. We've talked about how I want to do VOD review stuff, things like that, but I really haven't been getting a ton of submissions. Apparently people don't want me to tell them what they're doing wrong. I don't blame you. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start to record some of my own scrim footage and then try to break it down and analyze myself on the YouTube channel and kind of give you guys an insight into what I'm doing as a player to improve and the path and the journey I'm taking. It should be, I would hope, exceptionally useful to Zenyatta players and Flex support players. So make sure you check that out if you're that. Otherwise, hopefully I'm still able to provide some insight and value. I'll talk briefly about team stuff, but I'm going to definitely focus inward and individually on myself for those. So keep an eye out on the YouTube channel for those.
Yeah, I think I honestly think that'll be great. And I think it will also potentially breed some submissions as well. So if you guys ever have footage that you guys have done of either competitive or team play that you want Death to take a look over and give some pointers on, send it to us in one of the many channels that we advertise almost nonstop during the episode.
Yes. Even if you don't want it on the YouTube channel, I'm happy to do things privately that aren't outward facing. So just shoot me a message and let me know.
Right. But let's move on to what did you guys do last week? You, of course, being the greater Overwatch community. First things first, we got a shout out on the overview. So if you guys have ever listened to the overview, I know a lot of you have. That's with Chanman V and Fishsticks, ZP, and Flame. Our Cool Matt 69 interview got mentioned because it was a big hit around the competitive Overwatch community. It actually has like 1,500 views on YouTube. It's catching up to my my Diva Mech video, slowly but surely.
It helps when they tell us some information that's not publicly out there yet. It definitely helps get it some exposure. So big thanks to Matt on that for giving us what insight he possibly could without getting himself in trouble.
Yeah, hopefully he didn't get in trouble for that.
I'm sure he's fine. He didn't tell us anything. He just told us there's things we don't know, basically. So it should...
Right, confirmed our suspicions, but. Yeah, so that's gonna be that is gonna be it for sure. And then also we no, that was it. No. I just got completely thrown off. But what I actually wanted to do was move into my favorite segment of the show. Overwatch Today Meme of the Week. That, of course, is the Overwatch Today Meme of the Week. For reference, Overwatch Today is now Game Watch Today on Instagram. You can listen to one of the previous episodes to hear that whole controversy and whatnot. But no need to go on Instagram. It's garbage. But we do have a meme this week, and this one is an interesting. It's basically just a clip right from The Office, and it has Reaper saying, "Akande, we believe Winston has recalled Overwatch," to which Doomfist responds as Dwight Schrute from The Office, quote, "When I see someone smile at me, all I see is a chimpanzee begging for its life." Classic Dwight, classic Doomfist.
Classic show. What a good show that was.
Such a good show.
We should reference The Office more, and so should Overwatch Today in his memes.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Doomfist, you guys will be able to hear our interview with the best Doomfist in the world, aka Leaf from Gamers Origins, in the High Noon Hot Seat, which will be available in a couple of days if you're listening to this soon, or it should already be available if you're listening to this in 30
first
years.
Tangent of the episode, because we might as well get it started.
Yeah.
I'm kind of upset that The Office didn't run while Overwatch was out, because I feel it would have been mentioned on the show had it been, because Dwight actually did a Halloween costume that was a StarCraft character. And I think he would have done Overwatch if it was out.
I think so, because Overwatch is much more of a cultural institution in the U.S. than StarCraft is in the U.S.
Yes. So I think it would have been perfect. Now I'm upset and angry. We haven't even started talking about
now I'm just picturing Dwight dressed up as Reaper and just like going through and like talking like this to everyone in the oh man, we could, you know what, we should just quit and become office writers.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reach out to the actor's name I can't remember off the top of my head and get him to do it. There you go. We'll have to reach out to him and have him ignore us.
Comic-Con. He seems like a nerd. Yeah.
Rude.
Have him ignore us and not do it. Okay, perfect. But let's move right along to it's tournament talk. See, now I just can't. I just really want to have Matt Miller, I think his name is, just the actual McCree voice actor, redo that for us instead of having my awful rendition of McCree on there.
Yeah, if we can ever get him to do anything for us, like we will pay you, Mr. Voice Actor Man. So let us know. We've got.
I feel like he'd be more likely to do it for free, but just based on Matt Mercer, that's right. He'd be more likely to do it for free, but I think that based on the interview with the Sombra voice actor that was on Omnic Lab, they are pretty much like, we can't do things with these, like, we don't own these characters even though they're our voice, and we can't do things as the characters that aren't like explicitly written for and done for Blizzard.
Gotcha.
That's basically what she said. It was
the Dream's dead.
Yeah, Dream's dead. At least not for commercial use. So maybe they could do it for us, but I doubt it. She wouldn't even like answer questions as Sombra. Like, she couldn't do that. But I don't know. Moving right along, let's actually talk about the tournaments. We had 2 matches of Apex play this week, which is at least one more than I thought they would play in an entire week of us knowing about it. We had Kongdu Panthera in the first group stage, beat Conbox 3-0, and then we had Runaway 3-2 with this match, and I want to kill myself for saying it like that. You're welcome.
Yep. Thanks, friend.
Yep, they beat X6 Gaming 3-2. So we will continue to give you the weekly updates on that, but in terms of any sort of analysis, we don't really have it because we are not up during that time. And honestly, like, as a little bit of a side note, like, I don't really know anyone that does watch all those matches. Like, even listening to the other podcasts, like some of the podcasters will like watch some of those matches, like pretty much the Lunatic High games, and
right.
I guess now the Runaway games, and some of the like other like top tier matches. But like, a lot of the Korean scene is just unknown in NA because it's just such a weird time to watch. So
it is. We're definitely not alone in that. The only thing I know for sure is I do wish we covered it, because I know the tier 2 players and people that are aspiring in a team environment to get better really think very highly of the Korean scene. So those VODs are almost more valuable at times than Contenders to a lot of people. So right. I do wish we covered it more, but honestly, we only have 60 minutes. And as you guys have noticed, we're never done in 60 minutes. So we're already over, and we already don't talk about them. But that's the beauty of the league, right? Because it's going to bring all of them together, all the regions, into one central spot for us to focus our time on and not miss anything. So, there's still all our hopes and dreams are pinned on this league and taking off. So we'll see how that goes. And in the meantime, we'll just kind of leave it to you guys to head on over to Discord and fight with us there about the Apex results and what's going on with the Korean scene.
Yeah, and I mean, if anyone does watch those events, like, reach out to us, because I've always just been kind of curious as to like why you would. No, it is the type of thing where like I love the production quality and the casting for Apex. It's just like so inconvenient for us, but
Korean McCree musical guests are top notch.
Yeah, so good. We're probably the only people that remember that, and we reference it on a basically bi-weekly basis.
Hashtag never forget.
Never once will I ever forget. But let's move on to what we have been covering extremely closely the past month or so, and that is Contenders Season 1. We'll start with the EU side. We saw Singularity get taken out by Team Gigante 4-0. We saw Cloud9 take out Gamers Origins 3-1. We unsurprisingly saw Misfits 4-0, 1-2-3. And we saw one last breath of life out of E United as they beat Bazooka Puppies 3-1. So this was the, I guess, non-super week for EU. We had a super NA week. But we had a couple of things happen, and the rest is still up in the air. So Misfits at 6-0, as well as Gigante at 5-1, secure their playoff spots. So Misfits is first, obviously, and Gigante is second. Though I think it's still possible that Gigante doesn't end up second, but they are definitely not. They're definitely locked. For the playoffs, and Misfits was locked last week. So, and then Bazooka Puppies at 0-6 with a whopping 3-21 map record is sadly out. But what that does mean is that we have quite a toss-up. We've got 5 teams potentially playing for 2 spots. in the playoffs. According to this, E United is not out at 1-4. They still have an off shot, which I love. But we've got 1-2-3 at 3-2, Cloud9 EU at 3-2, Gamers Origin at 2-3, Singularity at 2-4, and E United at 1-4, all vying for the 3 and 4 spots in EU.
All right. I am experiencing technical difficulties, so just keep pressing on without me while I try to recover from them.
Yeah, but I don't have the matches that are happening next week up in front of me, but basically every one of these matches is going to be huge. I believe Misfits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Misfits has one more match. There's 7 total matches going to be played. So Misfits has one more match. I mean, if they lost, it would open up thing. Like if they lost to, I don't even know who they're playing. Maybe Cloud9. I don't know.
Misfits upcoming matches, you want to know?
Yeah, they have one more match to play.
Yeah, United
against United. So I mean, if United somehow won that makes their chances a lot big. Like they probably have to win that match in order to secure a spot at 1-4. And then Gigante also has one more match. Do you know who that's against?
I sure do. That is against, as soon as I can finish reading this correctly, they play against Bazooka Puppies.
Okay, so that match means nothing. So every single other match is...
Stay tuned for that match, guys.
Right, yeah. We're going to do a deep dive on Team Gigante versus Bazooka Puppies. Yeah, we're going to do the deep dive on that. That would be the one that I randomly picked for some reason. And did a whole deep dive, and it just didn't matter at all. It wasn't close, and it didn't matter.
A little bit like this week.
Yeah. I mean, that match was at least hyped up.
It was.
For good reason.
I mean, to be fair, like, don't get me wrong. I have notes on it, too, and we might as well talk about it. Like, we had all these plans to talk about Envious versus Envision, and then we saw it, and we decided not to do that anymore. I mean, but we'll get to that more.
I'll talk about it, but not as much as I was planning on it before the match. Every single other match, 1, 2, 3, Cloud9, Gamers Origin, Singularity, and United, all of those matches, United's playing against Misfits, but those 4 other teams are all playing against each other this week. This upcoming week, potentially against 2 of those matches. So everyone gets to choose their own fate, with the exception of maybe E United, but it's
United needs a whole lot of help.
Yeah, United needs to win out. One of those wins is against Misfits, and then also probably needs someone like the right people to win as well. So
yeah, and really shout outs again on accident, but to whoever wrote this schedule. The teams that are locked are the ones that have played 6 games, and the ones that have their extra matchups this weekend are the ones still in it. So we get, I mean, the EU scene is set up perfectly for my mind to make the next, the last weekend as compelling as possible. Cloud9 has to face 1, 2, 3, and we're all sitting here wondering, what happened to 1, 2, 3. Now they're 3 and 2. They looked like, the team that might compete with Misfits, and now we have no idea. So everything's really crazy. 1, 2, 3 also has to play against Gamers Origins. Like all the teams that are still alive just clash against each other still, and they play against 2 of the people, and it's just perfectly set up and perfectly scheduled. So big shout outs there to the people over running Contenders who wrote the schedule and hit the jackpot.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to think of another tournament that has been this exciting every week for this long.
Yeah.
Like it's almost always like, okay, let's just do the playoffs, please. Like I don't care about the group stage at all, but this has just been like week after week. It's been like, first it started off with like, wow, we didn't realize these teams were going to tank because they both won last season.
Right.
Followed by like every single week has meant so much. And like, it's probably like in NA, it might come down to map wins. Like it's that close. The winners have both tanked super hard. The people that came from the bottom and snuck in and barely qualified have been super impressive. Everything about this tournament's been phenomenal from week 1, like you said, and it has not stopped yet. So super hyped for the playoffs. Yeah. So let's move on and talk about NA because this is just as exciting. potentially even more exciting depending on how you look at it. But real quick, so the match that we alluded to being so hyped last week, Envious versus Envision, was in fact the opposite, and I guess not really that surprisingly, Envious beats Envision 4-0. It was just in the manner that they did so that was so disappointing. We also saw FaZe beat Kungarna 4-0, and we'll make a little note here to talk about. We're going to talk about Kungarna in a little bit. Renegades picks up their dumpster win again, Immortals picks up their dumpster win against Renegades, the two bottom dogs, one of which won Contenders Season 0. It's just a crazy time for them. Phonography beat Envision 3-1. So that was actually Envision's first loss was to Phonography. Their first loss in the tournament was this week against Phonography, and then they ended up losing against Envious later. Rogue jumping back into prowess, wins 4-0 against Kungarna, and then Envious beats Phonography 3-1, and we will be doing a deep dive on that match. So what's the scoop, Death? Like, what's going on in NA?
Well, NA's kind of a mess at the moment, to be perfectly honest with you, and it's goofy to watch a little bit too. I'm not even gonna lie, right? Because I mean, we had all this hype, and I was very excited to see. I thought Kungarna was going to be in this mix of teams that were competing for this last spot. It looked like it was going to be an absolute four-way race, and it's not really what we're getting right now, because Baby Bay announced that he wasn't going to be playing with Kungarna for the week, and they really have checked out. And to the untrained eye that I have watching these things, or mildly trained eye that I have watching these things, I just don't think they're trying anymore. I think, and this is a little bit backed up by XQC, who's always saying things in chat on Twitch, and never one to shy away from his opinion. To quote him directly, I believe Kungarna doesn't give a blank about making it to LAN or winning anymore. Baby Bay not being there kind of shows that. Most of them are being signed in the OWL, so I don't blame them. They know exactly what to do to win. These aren't dumb players roster-wise anyways, so even takes a little shot at Kungarna's players there as well. But, I mean, he makes a solid point. Like, this is a strong team. Like, we saw them eliminate C9 in the last time, and that they weren't necessarily favored to win that matchup. They've been really, a high-performing team throughout this tournament, and then now all of a sudden, Baby Bay not being there could be the whole ball game. Like, the five that are there could be trying super hard, but honestly, I don't think so. It doesn't look like it to me when I watch it, and I don't know. It's just kind of an awkward situation, and I do get it, but at the same time, like, I mean, there's still money on the line here, guys, right? Like, what motivates you? If not, like, if it's not glory and it's not money, what gets you out of bed in the morning and gets you playing Overwatch for 8 hours a day? Because it can't just be loving how toxic chat is in CompQ. That can't be what's driving you there all the time. So I don't know. To me, it's upsetting because it degrades the viewer experience a little bit. So I don't care how teams do, right? Like, I'm not sitting here and I wasn't beating up Singularity for it, 2 weeks ago when they were still undefeated and not doing well. Like, I don't fault Renegades for losing. I don't mind Immortals losing. Like, it's unfortunate. I wanted to see them do well, but this one bothers me a little bit, and I don't know if it's because, and it could just be that somebody else put the idea in my head that they're not caring and they're throwing, so, and it's not a throw. It's not like these guys are out there not trying, but to throw in the terms of what I'm saying, like, this isn't a DeFran situation. I'm just saying, like, you don't scrim super hard, you don't go all in. They're trying in the game, but they don't look like the Kungarna that we saw even 2 weeks ago. Right. So something is different, and I do think it's a little bit more than just, we have one substitute in. Like, this team was better than going from undefeated with their roster to we missed one person and now we can't win anything. So I don't know.
Right, and it's been almost the exact opposite of that for Rogue. Like, they started out super weak, which was the opposite of what everyone thought. Where, like, we saw Immortals, Renegades, and Rogue, three teams that were arguably at the top of a non-Envy NA. come out to a really slow start in Contenders, and we're like, what world are we living in right now? It's like, at least Envy's still doing good, or else like someone just rolled the dice on the universe and we don't know what's going on anymore.
Right.
And then Rogue, it seems like they've really kind of caught up. I mean, granted, they played against Kungarna, who we just talked about, kind of maybe not quite all there, but Rogue is still in the mix. So we still have Envision, Rogue, Phanergaphy, and technically Kungarna still in the running for the playoff spots. We have Envy and FaZe locked right now. And one thing I'll say about FaZe is that they've looked really good these contenders, this contenders season. But if we know FaZe, like, they're like the most inconsistent team that I know of, besides old Team Liquid, who like was literally inconsistent in terms of their roster for the longest time.
Yeah, historically inconsistent. But the thing about FaZe is that in this event, they've been very even-keeled. I haven't seen a lot of variance in their play. You know, they've been a consistent team contained to this event. So it definitely, I think, means good things for them going forward. I think it's a little unfortunate to me that they're locked when they go into this matchup versus Envision. But if nothing else, it just kind of saves it, right? Because let's say Envision wins this one because FaZe is, you know, maybe trying comps a little differently that they wouldn't normally go into, doing something with this patch. But at the same time, it also looks like the patch that's coming out tomorrow/yesterday, future fast podcast time, you know, it's going to likely be live for the playoffs. And I don't know that we know that confirmed. We even asked Leaf about it, and he didn't know confirmed. So I don't want to say confirmed that the patch will hit for the playoffs, but I really think so. I think they're going to use the playoffs with whatever the current patch is when it begins, and that's likely to be the one that comes out today, tomorrow, or tomorrow, yesterday, whenever it is. It's so confusing. I don't know how we keep it as straight as we do. But yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be really interesting, but there's so many compelling matches this weekend anyways, because of the fact that, I mean, I'm going to, for the moment, throw Kungarna out of this conversation. Okay. They have to play against, let's see, Immortals, and Immortals is eliminated. So there's a very real chance that Kungarna wins this. But at the moment they need a lot of help. So, and they don't fit the point I'm going to try to make here, is that there's only 3 maps separating Envision in 3rd place and the Corn Dog in 5th place. So Envision has to play against FaZe. If they get 4-0'd, it's going to be really hard for them to make it, I think, right? It's going to be super difficult because they're going to add a 0 to that. And then if the Corn Dog is victorious and they have to play against Renegades, so yeah, they're going to win. It's, you know, it's going to, and it's likely to be a 4-0. So if we add 4 to that, that puts the Corn Dog at 16 wins, 1 above Envision. So Envision has to steal a map here, and they have to take a map off of FaZe in order to keep themselves alive, the way I see it, right? Because we have Rogue already, Rogue is already 2 maps up on the Corn Dog. However, and it looks like they control their destiny, and they do. If they win their matchup, they make it.
Right.
They play Envious.
I was gonna say.
So they play against Envious, and that's going to be really difficult. And the best we've seen anybody do throughout the course of this tournament is a 3-1 loss against Envious. So it's going to be a really, really tough road for Rogue to make it into the playoffs. They've obviously got that chance, but it's going to start with map wins. It's going to start small with that team. They have to take maps in order to keep themselves alive here, because even though they're in 5th place, I think the Corn Dog might be my favorite of the 3 to make it in. And I don't know that they'll get to the 3 spot, but they should be able to at least, I think, almost guarantee themselves into the 4 spot.
Really, it's 3 teams playing for 2 spots, right? So, because Kungarna's basically out. If
we throw them out for the purposes of making the math easier,
right? Yes. Then, yeah, I mean, it really. I don't know if we could have asked for it any better than this, but it's literally going to come down to maps. 100%.
Yeah, and what's even crazier about it is that Envision doesn't play Rogue or Corn Dog, and none of them play against each other, as they all each of the
It's like
four
golf.
teams still alive play against the other four teams that are
Yeah.
already locked and their positions are decided. So all bets are off. I don't even know that these are going to be good, compelling matches to watch in a standalone setting. Like,
Right.
you know, that very well might not be the case. But because we're here trying to figure out these last two spots,
Right.
there's like infinite value in these matchups.
Yeah,
every single one of them.
is is going to be such an exciting match from the score side of it,
Yeah.
but probably won't be very good to watch necessarily.
And when you think about it this way, is there any match that we've seen Renegades play in this tournament outside from like the first couple where they're going to be more hyped than they will be for as a player that I was on some bad football teams growing up in high school, things like that. Like you get hyped up for the spoiler role. You want to upset and crush people's dreams. Absolutely. So that affects, you know, just motivation and drive from these teams, even when they're out. So I think that's definitely, and also, I mean, they're all still playing for scouts that are watching them play right now. And if I'm an Overwatch League team owner, I'm not planning for when my team's bad, but I want to know, right? Like if my team's bad, are these guys going to show up for my fans? Because I want my fans to have a watchable product, even if my team doesn't make the playoffs in the Overwatch League. Yeah. I don't want to abandon my fans. I want these guys out there putting on a show. And so I think it's important, maybe not very important, but I do think it's at least a deciding factor about what to have for, you know, or about what to look at when you're picking your teams and deciding on these rosters.
Well, I think honestly, like if you look back into the historical implications of this Rogue versus Envy match, there's actually a lot here. Rogue is one of the only teams in recent history to I think they're the only non-Korean team to beat Envious that I can even remember at all, like just period. With the exception of maybe Cloud9 way back.
Pre-hero limit days.
Might not have even been able to play Overwatch at that time.
C9 was right at release, wasn't their heyday.
Oh,
really.
Right. But like a million years ago, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think, exact same Rogue team with maybe one or two changes. I don't even know. I think this exact same Rogue team has beaten this, not this exact Envious team, but
the core
of
the teams are both the same for sure. Like, and I think the Rogue might have been like pre-trade when they beat them, but I don't know.
They weren't. I don't think they were. I don't think
it's close. It's in that time frame.
I don't think it was the Misfits old Rogue. I'm pretty sure it was new Rogue when they came back from Korea.
Okay.
Is what I'm remembering. I mean, it may have been both times, but regardless, like, do I think that Rogue is favored in this matchup? Absolutely not. Do I think that they can get map wins against Team Envious? I think it's been seen. So I think that one's going to be huge. And then it's really just going to be like, does Envision drop the ball? Like whichever, like if Envision and Phenergraphy don't 4-0 their matches, like Rogue gets to, I mean, actually if Phenergraphy 4-0s, then, okay, so if Envision 4-0s, they're locked, okay? If Phenergraphy 4-0s, they need Rogue to do something that has not been done in this tournament yet in order to win. If Phenergraphy doesn't get 2 map wins, then they're just out.
And remember, 5's the magic number. So Envision, all they actually have to do is win. They don't have to 4-0 the lock.
Right.
Just get the W. Okay. Right, because they're at 4-2, and the other 2 are at 3-3. So it's win and in for Envision, and they've made it easy on themselves versus a locked team that, honestly, if I'm looking at, especially after Envision coming off of 2 losses, like it's way easier when they're coming off of 2 losses to throw away the 4 wins at the beginning and go, okay, well, that was Renegades, that was Immortals, that, you know, and to focus and say, maybe you want them, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe they want Envision to be in the tournament still, because maybe they think that's their route, right? Is that that's an easier opponent. Like, well, I'd rather play against Envision than Rogue, because I think Rogue has gotten it back. So if I can help them not get there, then I save myself having to play against them. So who knows? Like that's why these might be, you know, the least compelling matchups of the tournament on the, you know, in a vacuum, and only because of themselves. But at the same time, like, the results here, the implications on the standings are huge, and I'm very, very excited to see them play out.
Yeah, I'm really going to be paying attention to this NV versus Rogue matchup because, like, I mean, if Rogue wins, like, they're in. And, like, obviously I root for Rogue. I've been a Rogue fan for a long time. I have a Rogue jersey, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, it's going to be tough. Long story short, it's going to be somehow still going to be an exciting week. It's still going to be an exciting week, even the last week of group stages. But do we have anything else to talk about before we go into the deep dives, Steph?
No, I think we should go with it because we're running up on time here, I think, soon.
Yeah, we still have a little bit of time, but let's just move right along and
let's break it down.
We're gonna break it down. But actually, I'm going to start off with a segment that was suggested by a member of our Discord, and that was the shame of the week. And coincidentally enough, the shame of the week is going to go to a match that I thought was going to be the deep dive, but instead was Envision versus Envy. So let's just give it what it deserves.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Shame bells around for that match. Not necessarily to either of the teams or the tournament or anything, just that match and its implications and the fact that it didn't live up to the hype that I wanted it to. Again, for reference, I have 3 pages of notes for this match that I watched and ended up being basically useless because I just needed to watch all the way through.
And I crushed your dreams this morning too. I feel a little bad about it, but I saw your tweet about how, like, got all these notes for this map to do this deep dive, and then I messaged you and I'm just like, what about that match made you want to deep dive?
What about literally any other match? I mean, my response to that was it was the one I watched.
Right. but notes. I've got notes.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna like watch it. It was it was the last match that happened. And I'm not gonna just stop taking notes on it, but I'm just gonna paraphrase this because there's really not a lot to talk about in the actual matches themselves. So it started out on Lijiang Tower, and actually it was actually very exciting at the beginning because everyone was hyping this up. We've been hyping this up for like weeks now, ever since Envision started to make their run. Envision, how good is Envision? They've passed every single check mark since they beat Rogue, they beat Immortals, they beat Kungarna, they beat everyone basically, with the exception of Phonography and Envious up until this point. How good is Envision? And we're talking about, like, what if Envision beats Envy? Then what? Like, the world is back in flux. But, like, realistically, if they take maps against Envy, it's like Envision is the next best thing ever. But instead, we got something completely different. So the match started out on Lijiang Tower, and actually Envision takes the point. They take the first point of, I don't remember. Garden? Yeah, Garden. They take the first point of Garden. They get like 60-something%. And then after they get 60%, Envy pushes them back, and Envy takes the point. And then from that point until the end of the last map, it was never close.
I mean, they did get to flip the point again, right? But it was just...
Right.
And basically on that point on Garden, Taimu's Widow, just the picks and the stall and the delay in between the team fights that came from just random. Did you see the shot on that Lucio? It was just the stupidest thing ever.
It was so stupid. And it was actually a really interesting decision by Envision. That rhymes. It was actually it was a really interesting decision because they saw Taimu on Widowmaker and they stayed with Pharmacy. It's like, you're going against Mr. Good Aim himself as the character that exploits that the most and counters your Pharmacy. And they actually didn't do awful with the Pharmacy. It's not like the Pharaoh or the Mercy were getting picked like instantaneously, and they should have switched. They actually took the back route or the left route from their perspective, and kept the sight lines for the Widow kind of obstructed, but it just wasn't enough.
Timey brought the stall, and Effect brought just like the domination in the team fights on that map, especially. Like Effect is silly.
So good. Yeah, so that was about that was about as close as it got. In Control Center, that was just a dumpster fire. Taimu went off with Junkrat and just the whole time dumpstered. Like I think Envision touched the point in the opening push and then never got close to it again.
So I wrote this down in my notes here, and it was so Envision ran triple tank into the Junkrat the whole map. Not a single swap was made throughout the course of this point, and 20% they had ample time to make switches because 20% of the point progress was gained while Envision was backed up in their own spawn room with a Junkrat tire, not kidding you, on top of the spawn room door, like on top of the ship that you spawn in the map. It was just, he put it on top and he was just waiting until the timer ran out, dropped it in front of the door and blew it up. And he just completely bottled them up. And not once did they go, well, I mean, when you're being spawn camped like that, popular picks are Widowmaker. Like, you can't get shot from inside the room, but you can shoot out. So pick Widow. Pick Bastion, right? Like, you're invincible and you just shell out infinite damage and push them away from your door.
Something.
None of that happened. So that was really... I went from going, okay, like, I don't mind that they lost the first point. Like, you can lose Garden, you're fine. And then I'm just like, oh, no.
They wanted to just concede.
And
go to the next map, essentially.
Yeah.
That was I literally have for my notes. I have Taimu plays Junkrat and then Envy Dumpster. That's literally all I have wrote for that map. Although I did see it, when Taimu did that Junkrat ult, he took a really weird and cool route, like on the side of the map to jump up there. It's like, and he did it so seamlessly, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. And it's like, why would you have done that so many times? It's like you spend so much time spawn camping people that, and I'm like, yeah, you probably.
He did. If you fancy yourself a Junkrat player, the one thing I will tell you is you need to watch both Envious matchups. You can skip around for the Junkrat play. You're using tire wrong. Every single Junkrat player I've ever played with in comp is using tire wrong. Taimu and Buds are doing it right. So go find out what they're doing with the tire when they have it. That's definitely the case. But moving along in this match here, we did go to King's Row next, and it took 2 minutes here for Envision to finally get the point. But they got a pick on Effect. Effect goes on this greedy flank. I think this was the play where he was McCree, and he actually goes like through the choke point and up into the movie theater, around behind, and gets slept instantly by I think it's Fozix, that was the Ana player there. So a great sleep there, and it just really greedy flank that really did not work out. It
was weird because I know exactly what play you're talking about. There was actually a split second where he had three skulls up and he didn't click in time, and then I think he got his ult off in time to do some damage because they moved out of the way, but he got slept instantly. So it was like it was just the biggest slap in the face for that one.
Yeah, it was like slept in the animation of the first shot going off.
Yeah. And then there were some weird points there where Envision was using Doomfist and Junkrat. Or I think it was Junkrat and someone else for sure that could not kill Pharah, and Taimu just went Pharah and just was crushing them from above, uncontested.
And we did get to see Effect on Doomfist on this map a little bit, and he was pretty strong. We talk about it in the interview a little bit. He's no Leaf, but he was definitely a very, very strong Doomfist. And all in all, the attack for Envision, they cruised pretty well. Like once they took point one, which wasn't on that fight where they got the pick on Effect. Effect actually got back, and then Envy was able to retake the point. They just lost it right away on the next fight. So a really good job stalling. I mean, these Kings Row defenses, basically all point one defenses at the pro level, like they don't. They very rarely do they hold there, except for they do later on. But so very rarely do they actually pull off like a 0.1 hold. So it was just a really good job stalling, minimizing the time that Envision had. And I think if they didn't stall so well in the first point, we would have seen Envision actually cap the map out because they moved really quickly through second.
Yeah, they actually got about 75% of the way through the map, so about halfway through that to the final point.
Yeah, right around that first corner of the third point.
Yep. So considering the kind of the rough start, they did do a pretty good push. And the one thing I'll mention now, because it's just evident throughout the whole map and actually through pretty much Envy just playing, is that like Envy is just on another level for having a complete and utter team cohesion of game sense to know exactly what they need to do at the right time. Like, you see plenty of times where Envision and even Phonergraphy, they either get a pick and they don't move in appropriately, or they get picked and they overcommit. And Envy is so good at punishing those little mistakes of like, okay, you overcommitted an extra alt. Now we're going to stop you with the least amount of resources possible, but you're still not going to get there. And then we're going to be so far ahead the next match or the next fight that you're going to have no idea how to come back from this. It's like on another level that you just don't see teams doing right now.
Yeah, and on top of that too, and to piggyback off of it, they're not a perfect team. They do make mistakes themselves, even though it's hard to see them sometimes. But we were talking about this as a team. Like, nobody, no matter what pro, like, they're all pretty bad at this game right now. Because if I can sit there as me, being a Masters player, if I can sit there and watch the top 1% play this game, and I can pick them apart and mistake, and I can accurately, like, I can notice the mistakes in their play. That just says that, like, nobody's good at the game right now. Like, right, it's the game's so young. There's so much room for improvement, and Envy makes their mistakes, and sometimes they're big. And Kings Row has that example right there, because they hit a graviton, a really, really nice graviton. And Taimu missed with a dragon strike. Like, he was Hanzo and he missed the grav with the alt combo.
He missed the quick play combo.
right. Like, so the mistakes happen, but the difference is, and why they're better than everybody else right now, is like, so they made the mistake, they lost the ultimates, they didn't have the combo anymore, and they made switches, right? Like, they adapted to what the other team did. You hear that, Envision? They were getting beat and they made switches. And
Envy is amazing at being able to do that.
Yeah, and they make the right switches. They make them smart. They're not knee-jerk reactions. They seem to have it planned out and mapped out. Okay, so we're losing to this. This is what we're going to. Yeah. And they don't do it too fast. They let themselves cycle through their ultimates, and they do it at the smart time and the right time. And they do it with as little disruption to the game flow as possible, so as not to cost them, immense time. And because when my team wants to do swaps, like, it pains me sometimes to see, like, I've made my switch, but we've got people that were, like, caught out or had to run back, and it just becomes this awkward thing of, like, now all of a sudden 30 seconds are gone off of our time, and I'm like, that's an entire push to build ultimates on the Zarya we just switched to that we don't have now. It's things like that, and they don't miss a beat with that, so they're always super, super efficient, and that's, in my mind, what makes them different. It's not that they don't make mistakes. It's that they see your mistakes and they capitalize and they do the right thing in response to them. They see their own mistakes and they shore them up as soon as humanly possible, and they rectify them ASAP, and they just get back on track. Like, they don't beat themselves up over them. Like, there's a lot of players out there that if they'd missed a graviton with a dragon strike, it would have tilted them, and they'd have been bad for the entire round. And that's at every level, whether it's in your comp queue, whether it's in mine top 500 or in the pros. There's people that will be affected like that.
The thing that I think makes the most sense to me, and it's another Magic reference, is that, like, Envy is so good at the little things. They're so good at getting those micro advantages and being able to play just a little bit better and react to their... It's like the same thing with, like, if your opponent is playing an aggro deck or something like that and you're playing a control deck, you're not making big splashy plays necessarily that are going to kill them. It's like you're countering their spell. You're making them play their thing at the wrong time. You're playing all of your stuff at the end of their turn, and you're like a boomerang on their creatures. Not a huge flashy play, but it gives you a little bit of an advantage. And the next turn you do something else, it gives you just a little bit of an advantage. And because you did something 3 turns earlier, you are so much further ahead 7, 8, 9 turns later that your opponent's like, how did I ever even why did I even play this match? I've just never had a chance to win. That's how it feels like with Envy. And, like you said, they're making mistakes. They'll make some mistakes, but they do so much that's right, and so much reactive stuff that's right. And they do it without, like, the biggest thing for me was like their Sombra play, not on this map obviously, but their Sombra play and their Tracer play and whatnot, and the McCree play. So many little things that they're doing just give them just small amounts of advantage, and they get so much more value out of their heroes without using alts. Like the other team will blow an alt, and they'll be able to use their McCree to counter an alt or to effectively nullify an alt, or mitigate an alt. And it's like every alt they're not using, as long as they don't lose the point, that's a net positive. Even if they quote lose the fight, as long as they don't lose the point, like that's a net positive for them. So it's just amazing when you actually take a look and like really watch Envy. It's just on another level.
Yeah.
But we'll run through the rest of these matches because there really wasn't a ton. Envy ends up on attack, like you mentioned. Taimu had the attack Hanzo, had that bit of a blunder. But there were a few spots where Envision gained some advantage. Like I mentioned, like Envy makes mistakes. Envision takes some advantage, but Envy is just unshakable. Like Envision was not able to capitalize on the advantage that they had. We saw the same thing with FNR GFE against Envy as well. It's like you need to really, really commit in the correct way against Envy when you get an advantage, or else they're going to recover as fast as humanly possible. And it just wasn't enough, and Envy ends up taking that map. But on Volskaya, really the only interesting thing for this is that we saw an Envision C9 here. They C9'd at the end. I forget who it was on Genji, but they like went for a kill on against Harry Hook. Or no, against I'm blanking. One of the Envy players, and they shouldn't have. He like could have gotten like a triple kill, but they just lost the point instead.
Yeah, it was like a low key C9 when he just needed to be focused a little differently. It was definitely unfortunate, and far from the worst C9 of the tournament though.
No, it wasn't the worst one.
The one thing that stood out to me in this map was when Envision was attacking, their method of approach I thought was really smart, right? Is obviously we're facing a Sombra, right? You don't need to check anything to know you're playing against a Sombra in 2CP these days, especially Volskaya. So they know it's going to be Sombra, so they run into the right side, and they actually get all of their players into the Mega Health Pack room. Mm-hmm. But Envy's no dummy. They know that you can only die to a Doomfist if the Doomfist can see you.
Yeah.
And they all ran away and just vacated the Mega Health Pack and ignored it completely, went to the opposite end high ground and just sat there and waited. And it just became this awkward scenario where now Envision is forced to, come out and approach. And now, and Leaf talked about this in the interview. It's something I've mentioned a bunch. I was super happy. All the things I've said about Doomfist, I feel like you validated a lot of them. And you have mobility or damage. You don't have both. So now when you come out of that room and you're on the low ground and the whole team's on the high ground, one of your main abilities has to be to get you vertical. So you lose out a ton of your damage, and all you have then is your punch. And it was just a dumpster fire of an attack. Like it did nothing, and just really shut them down and spent a lot of time, right? Like you can imagine how much time ticks off when you're like sitting in a room waiting for your opponent and they're not showing up. So really good situational awareness by Envy to just make the right call. And it's really weird in a fast-paced game like Overwatch to sit there and do nothing, but it was 100% the right thing to do, and they knew it and they did it. And it was, to me, we'd never see that, right? In our games, there's somebody is going to get twitchy and jump in there, and Envy was not having it.
Think to do that, like that is just like hours and hours of professional practice. Like you just know, they just knew it. And then there was something else. Oh, the other thing I wanted to note was that I was timing it. It took Taimu about 14 seconds to charge up an EMP. So
yeah, I mean, in the ideal scenario when the damage is coming in, I mean, when you look at some of the other players, and huge shout outs to the Contenders team for the stats they put on the screen this weekend. I don't remember seeing them last weekend. It was a lot of fun. But when you look at another player, and this one specifically was Corndog Bonnie, their Sombra player averages 59 seconds for an EMP. Fights last about that long, so that's an EMP every single fight.
Right.
And
well, it was 15 seconds.
This is 15 to build it, right? But like that's still not your average
time that
ults per
using.
Right. Like
that's,
sure, for Bonnie, that's he gets it, he builds it up, he fires it, and then he starts on the next one, and it's every 59 seconds that rotation he's got one. So it's really, really if you haven't played Sombra and had a team that knows to use the packs and how to use the packs, you feel super powerful because you're just Q. Like it's the greatest. As much as I railed against Sombra and hated it, with the idea of it, like I went off for all the wrong reasons, right? Because I didn't want her to be what I feared her to be. I wanted her to be what she was, and I just didn't see that because they put her in that damage category. I didn't see that she was a support character, so I ended up getting exactly what I wanted from the hero in the end. Although hopefully that stays that way, and she really just plays out more like a support.
Well, I think
that means I get to play her.
Right. I think I mean, not to go off on a huge Sombra tangent, but I think she's only being played to what her potential is at high level. And high level, I think, doesn't really care about a niche character that's really good on certain points, but not like a automatic and like broken hero. So I like where Sombra is a lot, and I hope that she stays. And then Envy on attack, it was just a complete dumpster. Like, I think they won on the first push. I literally only have Envy dumpster as my notes. Like, that's all.
Yeah, I just wrote quick cap too, so it was not
quick
much
cap
to do that.
Dumpster. Not really close, and we kind of saw that throughout as well. And then map 4 was Gibraltar, and Envision just got like Effect and Taimu. So the one note here. Was that Envy ran a really weird comp. They had Chipsyon, or Chipsygin, or however I don't know how you pronounce it. He was a solo healer as Anna. He was the only healer. And then we saw Taimu on Junkrat, and I believe, we saw Taimu on Junkrat, and we saw Effect on Tracer. And there was another DPS, I don't remember, but it was triple DPS, double tank, and then the solo Anna healer, which is an interesting comp. And they just took them to town like the whole time. Like they got to Envision got to Car Wash, and that was it. Like it just looked like, I don't know if it's just because of how Junkrat is or how Taimu plays Junkrat, but it just looks like he's toying with them the whole time. Like
I think that's a little bit of both, honestly. Yeah.
But the cool thing that I saw with the Junkrat that I hadn't really seen yet was the mobility that Taimu gets with Junkrat. Just like the seamless, like, oh my god, how did he get so far? Like he pretty much gets across the map faster than anyone else I could imagine. Like he's getting a further distance quicker than like a Tracer or definitely than like a Pharah or anyone else. Like it's insane that double mine can do to get you far. Like he was double mining back behind the car wash and then rip tiring in from behind the car wash and blowing up the team. It's like, that's insane. He went over the car wash to go behind them and then rip tired them from behind. It was insane.
Yeah, it's honestly been probably my favorite thing about the double mine change is how it's affected movement. Not so much that like I have two shifts to throw at a Tracer's face. And I'm blanking on the player, and it was either, I'm going to give all the credit to, I don't think it was Taimu, but I think it was Buds or Tavik. And they were in this situation where it was Lijiang Tower, it was Control Center, they're on the high ground as Junkrat, firing out rockets, and a Lucio comes flying up into their face and boops them off, and he just looks down, he throws the mine, he sends himself right back in. So like something that to me, I mean, I don't spend my time learning the ins and outs and the intricacies of Junkrat. I do honestly, I think it was Tavik. I'm just not 100% sure because Misfits, I believe, dumpstered this weekend, and I was late on time, so I skipped a lot of the 4-0s. That's the only reason I think I am hesitating that it might not have been. No, they played 1-2-3. I definitely watched that match. So yeah, it's been a really fun movement thing. And the one thing I wrote about this fight on Gibraltar, getting back to Envision versus Envy, so we can finally finish this match, is that every single fight, and this is not an exaggeration, I underlined it, I put periods after every single fight, a healer or the tracer from Envision died on that approach. They never, I don't think Envision ever once after the first fight got to fight as 6, because every single time either there was a pulse bomb that killed somebody, or Troll Rat dropped a trap combo somewhere and was able to get somebody that way, or just spam right as they're approaching. Spam finally got somebody down. It was uncanny how it was every single fight that one healer was down, and it was a 6v5 the whole time.
Yeah, Effect made it a point to just go in as Tracer, kill the support, blink out every single fight. It was insane. And it actually harkens back to one of the things we talked about before, where Effect tweeted out, or he wrote somewhere that after their match against FNRGFE, he said it was one of the worst matches he's played yet, and that he needed this Envision match to really kind of show everyone what he's made of, and really kind of take back what he believes is his in the crown. And we really saw that happen. Like, honestly, like, okay, Taimu's Taimu, and Taimu did Taimu things, but if I was going to pick an MVP of this match, even though it's, kind of a moot point because it was such a dumpster, I'm picking Effect. Like, if I am a scout for an Overwatch League team watching that match, I'm taking Effect here. Like, it was just insane play. And then that attitude we talked about before we started recording, like, that's the attitude you want for a player on your Overwatch team. Like, first person in the gym, last person out, like, gives it 100%, like, takes the loss, not necessarily takes the losses personally, but, like, it's not just like, oh, well, we lost, so whatever, like, let's just move on. It's like, no, we need to get something back from that. Like, that was bad, and I need to overperform now to make up for that loss.
Yeah, losses can be either constructive or destructive, and there's never usually a middle ground to them. And if you don't believe me, go on Reddit, find yourself a team, enter a tournament, and you will lose in your first round, and then watch what happens to your team. You'll believe me in a heartbeat. It's bad. But and if clue everybody else in, Effect basically, and this is the next match we're going to talk about, we're going to have to go pretty quick through it here, as I'm running low on time, which means the podcast is running low on time. But he basically said the matchup versus the Corn Dog, FNRGFE, was his low point as a professional Overwatch player. He said he felt just basically terrible about his performance. He did not think he was very good. Thought he gave them a lot of opportunities, and from our perspective, he looked pretty good. But that just tells you, I mean, he's looking at his play. He doesn't care about how good everybody else is in the world, right? Like, he doesn't care that everybody's bad at the game, like I was talking about, and blah, 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 blah. He doesn't know. He says, I'm not happy with how I played. Nothing else matters, right? And that's the exact right attitude. He didn't lay anything on his teammates. He didn't say anything about the opponent. He just said, I was not happy with my own personal performance. I feel it was one of my worst ever, and I need to get better in the Envision matchup. And I won't deny he was probably better in the Envision matchup, but I just think it was less of an even fight on the overall. So I don't know that I blame him as much as he does, but that's what we're referring to when we talk about that. Yeah. How do you want to handle this next one? Do you want me to go through it quick and you comment? Do you want to go the other way around?
Nope.
What do you want to do?
You run through and I'll give my tidbits.
All right, so the Corn Dog versus Envious. This was a Friday matchup, if I believe. It started out on Lijiang Tower Control Center, and this was interesting because there was actually a mirror match going on, and it felt very weird because this was the first match right after the patch went in. The first time we got to see the Junkrat changes live, and it was Junkrat, McCree, Reinhardt, Zarya, Anna, Lucio, both sides. This was a 100-0 win for FNRGFE. They crushed him. His Junkrat was silly. Envy, as bad as we've talked about how Envision looked against them at times, Envy looked that bad against FNRGFE on this point. But Envy's ridiculous. So we go to Night Market. It was a very close game, and towards the end of the map, Bonnie has this opportunity where, they're down, right? Anyways, the Corn Dog was down in ultimates, but they had a Transcendence in your pocket, and all you need is a Transcendence and a Dream, and you've got a chance to win any single team fight. And unfortunately, Bonnie got himself picked without ever getting the opportunity to use his Transcendence, and that point fell. So Night Market, in a close game, goes to Envious. Garden is where we talked about Taimu and his ridiculous Widowmaker picks and just everything that goes on there. Taimu actually comes out on Widowmaker in this point, and he wins the fight pretty handily with some ridiculous plays. And then personally, I heard other people saying he carried this map and handed them this win. I thought he disappeared in the middle of the map. The beginning, he carried. He opened the fight phenomenally, got them the point. At the end of it, yeah, he had a stupid last fight. I mean, he just stood on his head. But everything else in between was the Effect show to me. I thought Effect really stood out on that point, and Garden, in fact, goes to Envious to give them the first map.
Well, it's tough, right? Because all the credit in the world to the people running Contenders and the people who are manning the cameras, but like we see so much from Taimu's POV, it's hard not to think that Taimu carries everything. Because like I remember watching the Envision match and just being like, wow, I didn't realize that there were other people playing the game. I thought we were just watching Taimu stream. Like, and I don't blame him, because like he's playing Widowmaker, which is one of the most fun from a viewer perspective to watch. Like obviously you want the most exciting stuff, but like, and he's getting insane plays. Like I want to see that, but I don't know. It's tough.
It sells the other players short. Like one of my favorite players to watch, and one of the people that I try to emulate when I play is Chipsogen, and I don't get to see Chipsogen play in tournament. When I get to watch a tournament, I have to find them from somebody else's perspective. You get to watch Chipsogen's perspective? Get out of here.
I would love to see his perspective on that when they did that weird single healer comp, because I want to see I want to see how he's focusing as Ana. Like, who is he focusing? Does he just have like the spidey sense to know, like, oh, they're low, let's go here, flick here, flick here.
I run it, and you're looking at everything, and it's super hectic. It's absolutely insane.
I want to see that.
If you miss a shot, somebody dies. That's it. If you're in that comp and you miss like 2 shots in a row, you're down players, guaranteed. It's crazy. It's super hectic.
I would love to see that, which I hope they, for Overwatch League, enable like some in-client viewing, maybe, where we can watch in game.
We definitely want that. But one thing I do want to say about Contenders is I thought they did a really good job. I saw them put together and show support player highlights. Like they combined them, like even the camera footage that they're recording that is not actually making it to the broadcast, they were using, and they were using it to track the support players. So if you watch a little bit in the in-between, I can't remember what match it was. It might have even been at the end. I think it was the last one I took notes on, which was C9 versus Gamers Origin, I think. So check out that match, and you should be able to see the results there of that, and you'll get to see a little bit more of that support play. But I almost want that to be like a regular thing, right? Like I get it, the heat of the moment, the action, like you want to watch that Widowmaker, but at the same time, to tell the whole story to everybody and to give everybody the props they deserve, we got to see those supports and those tanks a little bit more often, and that's a phenomenal way to do it, the way they handled it. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Moving on, though, with Envy up a map, they're going to King's Row here. Buds on Junkrat was super effective. They only actually were stalled twice, right? Like there was only 2 fights where things didn't go FNR GFE's way. So they actually close out the map on attack with 1 minute and 51 remaining. Envy's attack was just absolutely chock full of just phenomenal alt combos. So a lot of set plays at work there, and something very valuable for your team to sit down and watch. This was a really good attack, so make sure you guys do. If you want to have some strats for King's Row, I would go straight to this game. And actually, despite the super effective attack from the Corn Dog, this was a slight advantage and a 2 minute and 20-second time. So we're looking at about 30 seconds of advantage here for Envy onto the reset. On the reset, the Corn Dog goes with a really good, they had a nice surgical attack. They actually cap the point in time, obviously, get overtime started, and almost finished point 2. So they take it right to the end there. It was a really, really strong attack, put themselves in a phenomenal position to be able to hold off Envy. However, Envy is ridiculous, and despite the fact that they were super far, I mean, Envy actually looked in a lot of trouble in this, and I really, really thought Corn Dog was about to even it up, and it doesn't happen. Spoiler alert, spoiling the next 30 seconds, whatever. Envy was down on alts. They looked like they were in serious trouble, and then they just managed to pull it out. And I don't even know, I would have had to have rewatched it like 6 or 7 times to, I think, really break down what exactly happens. They just hung around. They hang on the point, and honestly, not envious fashion, right? But when it's overtime, you don't have a choice. You have to be there. You can't give it up. And it was kind of all happening as time was expiring. And then they were moving into the streets phase. They looked, I wrote this, they looked very human on Kings Row. So if anybody's out there, this is a phenomenal match. What FNRGFE did to Envy on Kings Row, I think could potentially be a blueprint for how you might attack them going forward if you're another team in the playoffs. Right. So if you want to know what teams can do and how teams might beat Envy, make sure you catch that one as well. So this to me was definitely the match of the week, and the stat line and the scoreboard just does not show it, unfortunately. So that's why we're talking about it. Scoreboard does show it a little bit though, but Volskaya is the next map, and FNRGFE was unable to cap the first point. Brutal, just brutal. But a huge pick on Taimu actually started it off, but they just didn't have any follow through, right? So they had this huge opening and this great opportunity, and then just nobody dove in. And it was hard to watch because it was like your chance. I was so hyped up. I was like, yes, screaming, and just nothing. And they just stayed there. I'm like, okay, great. And then Taimu gets back and he plays their Sombra. They run it with 2 supports, which I thought was interesting, but his Sombra is ridiculous, so it makes complete sense. But yeah, so I don't know. It was kind of a missed opportunity there for the Corn Dog. And then Envy only has to take the first point, right? Not even the whole thing. Takes time for them to get their picks, but they were very slow, very methodical, and they just found a way. It's not a hard point to take a tick on, as at least not as hard as FNRGFE made it look in that attempt. And that was really the one map here where it wasn't close, right? So this could have easily, in my mind, been a 3-1 win for FNRGFE, and I will be very, very upset if the Corn Dog does not get it into this final bracket here, because I think, looking at this, they're my favorite for the team that's got a limp in the 4 seed is my favorite for the team that has a chance to take down Envious. And that's not even just because I'm a cool Matt fanboy, though I am. Gibraltar, though, was the last map, and this is the one that the Corn Dog is able to be victorious on. FNRGFE is able to push through, finish the entire map with 35 seconds left. Envy is not quite able to take it out. So I don't know if you have anything from that round. I remember I was loading into a scrim and not really able to take in-depth notes anymore. So I don't have the exact details there, but obviously, you know, anytime Envious loses a map, it's headline news at this point, right? Like it's why I'm able to say things and not sound like a complete idiot. Like FNRGFE is the team with a chance to take Envious out in the finals here, is because at times they do look human, and I thought there was at least 2 very human maps, and then like 1 control point map where they got dominated. So it was, this was a very, very close match. 3-1 tells you a lot when Envious is on either side of it. The fact that it's not a 4-0, but this easily could have been Envy's first loss of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean that one pick on Taimu on Volskaya, like
it was the opening. That was what they were asking for.
I know, and it's one of those things where it's like there's probably a second of hesitation where it's like, no, let's get 2 picks because we're ahead. Let's get another pick. Let's be +2 here, so we can just know that it's the type of thing where like you're playing with your head and not your gut, or maybe vice versa, where you're like, you know, this is Envy, like they can win a 5v6. Let's get +2 here. Like let's get another pick and then push, where it's really like, okay, you need to, like, you're not going to get 3 inches from Envy. You need to take the 1 and go. So it's that type of thing where, like, looking back, yes, that was an opening, and obviously it's easy from our perspective, the viewer perspective, to see that and be like, what the heck are you doing? But I can imagine when you're not super confident against the best team, one of the best teams in the world, and you get 1 pick, it's like, well, what if Taimu comes back and then we get, you want to play conservative, but like, if you're behind, like not just in the map itself, but just like in general, you're behind or you're a quote unquote worse team, you need to take risks, because playing conservative is exactly what's going to get the better team to win. You need to do things that are willy-nilly, loosey-goosey, risk-taking in order to get a team that shouldn't win a win. Like, you're not going to do that by being conservative. Like, that's just a general game theory thing. Like, if you're worse, do crazy things to get them off the beaten path.
Yeah, and there's times in this tournament, and it's about knowing the map and knowing the situation too, right? And as I went back to my notes and I looked, and there's the exact opposite of what you just said at play in the Gamers Origins versus C9 matchup, and there's an absurd overdive, right? That they get a pick and then they just like go wandering into the depths of the hallways at the back of Numbani Point A and just get killed to a man, right? After they have a one-man advantage. They go way too deep and way too greedy and leave line of sight of their healers, but know your map. You can dive your opponent on Point A of Volskaya without leaving sight of your healer. So do that. Like, get as aggressive as you can. Know the map, know the situation, know where your teams are at all times. But like you said, when you get an opportunity against a team that's better than you, don't walk, run straight through that crack in the armor and just try to break right through and do as best you can, as fast as you can. Because against a team like Envy, they make mistakes, and we've talked about they are in fact human, but it's close, right? Like, they're not. It doesn't make them vulnerable at the same time. Like, the opportunities are seldom. So
and their recovery is the best I've seen.
Yeah,
they will come back in perfect form and know exactly what they did wrong and be able to get that advantage back. But if you see that opening, or if you even just feel the opening at all, you just like, I was imagining, like, I don't know who the shot caller for FNRGFE is off the top of my head. What's that?
I just said it.
Oh, okay, yeah. We need like, I'm just imagining the shot caller was just like, and hesitated, and that was enough. Like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Boink. I'm about 99. I think Matt told us outright it was Boink. So, I
mean, I don't blame anyone. Like, that's the like gut reaction is like, it's Envy. Like, I don't want to take any chances. When actually you need to do exactly that. You need to take chances against Envy, because if you're playing just, cookie cutter Overwatch, they're going to be better than you. Sorry, they're just a better team. That's just fact. Like, you need to not play cookie cutter.
Yeah,
so
it's and I can even kind of bring that back to the matchup that I had with CLG. And when we were looking at playing them and we were playing against them, they had a new healer, and the name is blanking on me at the moment. To Anna. Oh my goodness. Anyways, but they just had a roster swap, and my Masters team that is just able to limp into this tournament and make it in, not going to beat CLG, right? But I know something, right? So there's my window. There's my tiny crack. The flex support players knew, let's try to expose him. That's all. That's the only plan I had. I go, he's new, so let's run 3 DPS dive. Okay, and let's just full commit on the Ana from the moment we see him, just jump him. And you can see it in our footage. I've watched that way too many times. Is you can see us initiate on him, and we get there, and it's just, but that's our moment, and we're going for it. And that was the only reason why there's any point in the kill feed where my guys, my Masters players, are getting kills on the pros and are filling up the other side of the screen. Right. That's the only reason why we did anything. And ever we didn't win a team fight, I don't think, the entire time. But that's the only reason why we made progress on points. Like, we didn't capture any points, but we made progress on them, and we did some good things on occasion. Not so much on Oasis, but for the other maps at least, we were there. They couldn't ignore us completely and do whatever they wanted and win anyways.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's just a good lesson. I mean, we've talked about it on many episodes. Actually, probably across podcasts we've talked about that. Honestly, just a general game theory thing. But any last minute stuff on the matches from last week, or anything at all on Contenders from last week, Death?
Nothing that comes to mind. I mean, a lot of really good matches. You can probably skip most of the 4-0s, though. I think you can skip anything Kungarna's in, but there's a lot of good matchups out there. So make sure you guys check them out. And if you only get to watch one, it has to be Envious versus FNRGFE.
Versus Envision. Make the same mistake I did. No, don't do that. Though, if you're going, if you want to see that, watch the Volskaya, or not the Volskaya, the Gibraltar map, because that comp is very interesting. And also seeing Taimu and Effect just go to town on Envision is actually quite a fun thing to do as well. But to recap, next week is going to obviously be huge for both NA and EU. We're going to have our playoffs set. I don't know if we've decided something, but maybe we can do an in-person watch Contenders like we have for other LAN tournaments.
I'm open to it.
I'm literally just
I need
thought
to know
about
exact
it right
dates.
now. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, whether that's just we're both in our own apartments, or I'll go to Blevins' apartment again. We can figure. You're in a new apartment, right? I probably got to come visit you anyway, sometime anyway. So maybe that'll just be our excuse to do it and eat some souvlaki and hang out and watch some Overwatch.
Yeah, and we could even potentially open up the Discord and just have like an open, cool thing. I could stream IRL from my phone, so we'll see. We'll see. But that's not next week. It's the week after for playoffs. But this week is going to be huge. Playoffs. This week's going to be huge for Contenders. We're surprised. We were planning on doing short shows for this, but we're like longer than we've ever gone, I think. But for good reason, at least. That's going to be it, guys. No more tangents. Huge thanks to all the viewers. Huge thanks to Matt Marino, who brought us to SoundCloud. So all the SoundCloud users can thank Matt Marino for that. Huge thanks to A. Smith for booking all the best guests in the world. Huge thanks to all the guests that have been on the show. Huge thanks to all of the patrons over at patreon.com/highnoonpodcast. Guys, this week, we've gotten a lot of new people lately, either from the interviews or from Reddit or from whatever. So, hi, all new people. Really appreciate you. If you guys get a chance, please head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. It does help us a lot, especially with us pumping out 2 episodes a week. We're hoping to make some big strides on the iTunes front. We've got some workings for some super sweet guests that we can use all the help that we can in terms of iTunes ranking and whatnot and all that stuff. Any and everything will help for that. So that will be it. Death, any last minute shout outs or anything?
No, but if you want to find us on social media, if you want to invite to the Discord server, you can always go over to highnoonpodcast.com. I know Thornrain mentioned in chat he's working on another article, so you can also catch his article there on the website as well. Once it comes out, keep an eye on our Twitter account for announcements there. And yeah, keep an eye out on these phenomenal matchups this weekend. And guys, we have a live tournament talk channel. And even if me and Blevins aren't currently watching the live matchup, A. Smith, somebody's in that channel talking so far during all the events. If they're not, go ahead and start typing in there. Somebody will be along shortly to provide their opinion and have a conversation with you. So it's been a lot of fun. Super happy we opened up the Discord. I know somebody suggested it to us before we listened to the suggestion because it came from a patron that time. So big thanks to everybody that yelled at us and told us to stop making a huge mistake with our Discord server. Really appreciate it. And hope to see you guys in there. I know we've gotten a lot of new people in the last couple of days, so it's getting bigger.
It is, it just grows exponentially. But that's gonna be it, guys. Remember, just watch Contenders this week. Like, of all the weeks to watch, like, it's been great every week. This one's gonna be huge. Watch that. And so I am the Blevins for Death Blow. Remember, guys, it is high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Soldier says, if you want to stop doing super episodes, don't do 1.5 hour regular episodes without the interview, you two mumbling idiots.